Okay, so today we're stepping into what seriously looks like it's been pulled straight out of a fairy tale. This is the incredible pink-harled Crathes Castle in Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Now, that harling is this traditional Scottish finish that gives it that amazing pinkish color. But don't let that storybook look fool you. This place is absolutely packed with history, priceless art, and even some chilling secrets. I mean, every single stone and every patch of ground here has a story to tell. So let's start digging in.
It's a fantastic question, right? And it just kind of hangs in the air there. In this explainer, we're going to peel back all those layers of Crathes. We'll start with a gift from a legendary king, then we're heading inside to see some 400-year-old art that will blow you away. We'll even meet the castle's most famous ghost and wander through its ancient gardens. And we're going to end with a discovery on these very grounds that basically rewrites a huge part of human history. Yeah, this is a journey that spans not just centuries, but millennia. You see, you really can't talk about Crathes Castle without talking about one single family, the Burnetts of Leys. For more than 600 years, their whole story was tied to this piece of land. And it all started with a gift from one of Scotland's most famous warrior kings, the one and only Robert the Bruce.
This timeline, it just shows this incredible unbroken chain. So in 1323, the Burnett family gets this land straight from Robert the Bruce. For a while, they actually lived on a man-made island in a nearby loch. But then in 1553, they started building the tower house you see today, finishing it up in 1596. And get this, from that day all the way until 1951, it was their home. An unbroken family line in this exact building for almost 400 years. Just amazing.
And this is the Horn of Leys. It's the actual symbol of that royal gift. See, when Robert the Bruce granted the land, he also made Alexander de Burnard the royal forester of Drum. This incredible ivory horn was his badge of office, a direct physical link to the king himself. And today, it still hangs in the castle's high hall, a silent witness to over 700 years of history.
All right, let's step inside. Crathes is just as spectacular on the inside as it is on the out. You have to navigate these surprisingly low doorways and these tight, winding staircases, and when you do, you find these rooms that aren't just preserved. They're basically art galleries, giving us this rare, vibrant look into the Scottish Renaissance. And here it is, the castle's absolute crown jewel. These are tempera paintings, so think pigments mixed with something like egg yolk, and they're painted right onto the wooden boards of the ceiling. This was a huge fashion in Scotland back in the late 1500s. It was how nobles showed off their wealth and their classical education. And the craziest part? They were covered up by plaster for centuries and only rediscovered in the Victorian era. That actually, by total accident, protected them perfectly for us to see today.
And you can see each of these painted rooms had a theme. The Muses' room, for example, was filled with figures of artistic inspiration. The Chamber of the Nine Worthies showed off heroes like Julius Caesar and King Arthur. It was kind of like a 16th century highlight reel of heroic virtues for your guests. These weren't just pretty pictures, they were a loud and clear statement about the family's culture, their education, and their status.
This simple comment from a visitor really just nails the feeling, doesn't it? I mean, it's one thing to see some armor or old furniture in a castle, but to look up and see ceilings just bursting with 400-year-old color, figures, and even text from the Bible, well, that's a totally different experience. It's so intimate and just stunningly beautiful.
But the stories kept within these walls aren't all about heroes and mythology. The castle's vibrant history is also shadowed by a much darker and way more persistent legend, a resident ghost story that has been chilling visitors for centuries.
So, it turns out the most famous resident of Crathes isn't actually a historical figure at all. It's a ghost. They call her the Green Lady. She's this enduring legend, a whisper in the stone corridors that adds this really chilling vibe to the whole place. So who was she?
Well, the legend is really tragic. It's about a young servant girl who just vanished centuries ago. Now, the story gained some terrifying credibility when, during renovations back in the 1800s, workers found the skeletal remains of a woman and a child hidden behind the fireplace in one of the rooms. Her ghost, dressed in green, is said to pace that very room, cradling an infant. The story is so well known that even Queen Victoria was reportedly one of the people who saw the sad figure during a visit.
Okay, leaving the chilling whispers of the Green Lady's room, let's step outside into the light. Because out here, the story of Crathes keeps going. It extends way beyond the stone walls into gardens that are every bit as famous and, in some ways, just as ancient as the castle itself.
1702. That's the year these magnificent yew hedges, the real backbone of the garden, are believed to have been planted. Now, just to put that into perspective for you, these are living sculptures that are over 300 years old. They were growing here long before the United States even existed, shaped by generation after generation of gardeners.
So those famous yew hedges, they divide the walled garden into 8 separate rooms, and each one has its own theme and personality. Walking through them is like moving through a series of living art galleries. One might be this explosion of color with flowers everywhere, another a quiet, calm pool garden, and a third might show off really cool, exotic modern plants. It is a total masterclass in garden design.
And then, beyond the perfect order of the walled garden, you've got the much wilder Crathes estate. We're talking 530 acres of woodland and trails that used to be part of the Royal Forest of Drum. Out here, the whole experience changes from appreciating cultivated beauty to just losing yourself in nature. You can follow one of 6 marked trails and hope to spot some of Scotland's iconic wildlife, like red squirrels or herons. It really shows you the two sides of Crathes, part curated history, part natural wilderness.
So let's recap. We've got a castle tied to one family for hundreds of years, it's filled with priceless art, haunted by a ghost, and surrounded by ancient gardens. But there is one final story buried here, a discovery that makes even the 16th century castles seem brand new.
The Burnett family's legacy was really locked in for good in 1951 when they gifted the entire estate to the National Trust for Scotland, preserving it for all of us. This amazing act of generosity opened the doors for the public to experience the castle, the gardens, and the whole estate, and it also set the stage for one of Scotland's most incredible historical discoveries.
But then, in 2004, some archaeologists were looking into weird crop marks on the estate, and they found something that completely changed the history of this land. They uncovered a site that dates back not hundreds, but thousands of years. 10,000 years. In a field right on the estate, they found a series of 12 pits that were dug by Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. And these pits form an arc that perfectly tracks the phases of the moon through the solar year. It's a lunar calendar, and at 10,000 years old, it is the oldest calendar ever discovered anywhere in the world. It predates the famous monuments in Mesopotamia by a mind-boggling 5,000 years. On the grounds of this Scottish castle lies the evidence of one of humanity's very first attempts to measure time itself. And that just leaves us with this really profound final thought. You might come to Crathes to see a beautiful castle, but you leave having seen rare Renaissance art, a haunting legend, and world-famous gardens. And underneath it all, you find a site that connects us directly to our most distant, ingenious ancestors. Crathes Castle isn't just a place that holds history. It's a place that fundamentally changes our understanding of it. It proves that the deepest, most incredible stories are often buried right under our feet.